How about them Miami Heat last night, huh? Wow, that was impressive. Yeah, Jimmy, that was impressive. The troll job afterwards was even more impressive, Jimmy. But we welcome you in here because we got three more games here tonight. Game threes now. That's the route we are on in the association, and three very interesting game threes because every one of these home teams tonight is down 2-0. So a lot to unpack with these games here tonight. We got two of the best to do it as we welcome in the pen. Oh, Ralph Michaels in the house, ready to roll, not only with a pen, but without a doubt, he's got himself some sort of chart we're going to look at here in just a minute. And double R, 1L, Steve Merril in the house, ready to go. Steve's already asking for S. Warrior. Because we know his ass is showing up here at some particular point at late and then just coming in and be like, should we get Miami in the next game? Yeah, we're going to get to that. Ralph, Customer Appreciation Day here today. $5 best bets across the board at WagerTalk. But you told me before the show started, that was history last night, was it not, with the Miami Heat? We're talking about one of the biggest upsets we've seen in a while in the playoffs.
The data base goes back to 2006, Joe and Steve, and there's only one game with a higher line. The Celtics took care of my Cavs as a 16.5-point dog a few years ago, so that was the biggest upset. FYI, those that know, I had to go to the database, and teams that game after pooling an upset as a double-digit dog have gone 7-10 against the spread, but the last two have both won. And Joe, as we talked about, the last two were both the Miami Heat last season, and they actually won the games outright as a dog the next game as well.
Kind of funny, Merril. You know, we talked about it yesterday, and you were right there going, hell, I ain't laying 15. I ain't laying 14 with Boston. We know because it's funny, out of sight, out of mind, but it was only Ralph was talking. It was a year ago that they did this, and they did it all throughout the playoffs as unbelievable dogs, and nobody's going to win, and they can't win. And it's amazing to me how we keep falling into the same traps over and over, and yet unbelievable effort by them on the road to get it done. Did you see anything last night that would give you any inclination that maybe, this may go more than the 4 or 5 games that a lot of people bet pre-series?
Well, it came down to 3-point variance. We talked about this a ton yesterday on the show. I mentioned how the Celtics were plus 30 from 3-point range in game one, and they only won by 20. Well, guess what? The Heat were plus 33 last night from 3-point range, and they only won by 10. So that was even worse than Boston's win. So, yeah, if you could tell me which team is going to make more 10 or 11 more 3-point shots each game, we could cash a lot of tickets without doing much work. It's the same thing with the NCAA tournament. One-and-done scenarios, that's why it is March Madness. Best of 7 series. The Celtics are going to win this series. They'll probably win the next 3 games. But in a one-game scenario like last night, if a team's going to make 11 more threes, they're going to win the game, and that's what happened. And by the way, Boston was still winning at halftime by 3, and I think Miami had something like 7 or 8 threes already. It was something ridiculous like in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. So probably not a good sign for your Heat unless they're going to hit 23 threes every game.
Yeah, no, it was, but we only needed to get one because we wanted one not to be swept there, and the chat room is asking for the hat, so here it is. We are off and running with the Miami Heat, but we got 3 games coming up here tonight. All 3 of these home teams, Ralph, in desperate need of a win. Not a great situation here. I would imagine the public is looking at, well, they got to win, right? They're home, so why not back these teams? These are some interesting lines, especially with your Cleveland Cavaliers, who are now in Orlando, they're getting 2.5 points. And am I crazy, or I saw absolutely nothing from Orlando to lead me to believe anything is going to be different at home here, Ralph? What are you seeing?
Well, we know the Cavs can play defense. We also know this. The Cavs were as injury-riddled as any team this year. I think the starting 5 played 29 games together. And I'll tell you what, their starting 5 is a legit starting 5 now. But you look at Orlando, hell, they haven't shot. I look back at their last 30 games. They never shot under 44.2%. What did they shoot the first two games in Cleveland? 32.6% and 36.2%. So they're shooting 34.6% for the series. You see Pablo, 15 turnovers. He just is struggling inside with Jared Allen. I mean, he's really getting taken to school. And if you look at the Cavs and say, well, the Cavs won by 14 and the Cavs won by 10. Hell, Cleveland only shot 44 and 41.5%. So it wasn't like the Cavs shot well and Orlando didn't. So I look at this and, one thing's going to surprise me. And, if you don't mind, Joe, if we could go to that chart, just because all three of these games are 0-2, I did talk about this on WagerTalk today. So if you watched it this morning, I apologize for the duplicates. But if you think teams have to win and that makes them perform well, take a look at that ATS record on the top. 0-2 teams at home since 2010 in round number one have only covered 41.2%. Now take a look. The home favorites basically 50-50 on the bottom. Home dogs are 11-19-1. Well, you could say Orlando's a 1 or a 2 point home favorite, but really that shows you how poorly those teams do. Now, we all know that a few years ago, we saw first quarter and first half lines higher than the full game when these 0-2 teams came home. And look at the scoring on the right. 0-2 teams have done well in the first quarter and first half. You look at those numbers, even home dogs have basically been even. First half scoring 52.7 to 53, only getting outscored by 0.3 points per game with an average line of 4.5. So be very careful having that mentality that I'm going to back 0-2 teams because they have to win. It has not been a positive, and in the first half. So I do, my mind says Orlando has to play better and Cleveland might struggle early. But watching the Cavs play defense, they're not even playing defense like they did at the beginning of the year. I would have trouble backing Orlando. I did not get to the window though with Cleveland in this game either, but to me, Orlando's young players have not been there and done that against this type of opponent, where Cleveland last year got run out of town against the Knicks, losing 4-1 in their first series. So even though they are the higher seed and have home edge, they truly do have a chip on their shoulder. Lean Cleveland for me. Full game, of course. Orlando, I think, will jump out early. A lot of momentum with that home crowd.
It's tough, Merril, because I'll take one even further than what Ralph is talking about here. He's talking about first half and full game, and it's as of, I would say, the last couple of years, certainly the books have adjusted, but I would extend that even, Ralph. I don't know if you got the database there. I had the numbers earlier. First quarters have also been atrocious for those teams down 0-2 at home. I think it extends even to that far. And I believe, Merril, it all has to do is, listen, the books know. The books know what's going on here. They've adjusted over the last couple of years. For a very long time, it was a profitable scenario, teams trailing 0-2, heading home, first half, full game, first quarter. But that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah, we talked about this the last couple of days with over-unders, how we saw so many unders cash the first few games of the playoffs, really the second half of the season since the All-Star break. And I pointed out that we saw higher scoring games than ever and more overs recently. The odds makers jacked the totals more than ever, and that's why the unders are hitting, because they're having to get back to where they should be. Well, it took them a few years to realize this first half, first quarter angle, and Ralph's charts show that so well. That's the advantage play. But yeah, as Ralph also said, the last couple of years, we're seeing stuff none of us had ever seen in our 30-year career. And that's where situations where a first half line is higher than the game. We're going to talk about the Lakers Nuggets in a little bit. The first quarter line in the Laker Nuggets game coming up in a bit is higher than the full game itself, which is insane if you think about it. It reminds me of like the financial markets once again, negative interest rates in some countries a few years ago.
Oh, all right. Look, oh, yeah, he was so excited about that. He froze his ass there, Ralph. Look at that. Just like that. He was so getting ready to talk the Lakers. and he froze his ass. Look at that. Look at the thing. He's still trying to think about it here, Ralph. That's all right. We got a glitch in the matrix, but we'll figure it back out here. But Ralph, did the first quarter also, if I'm not mistaken, since I saw it since 2021, postseason teams in this spot, 8-13 against the number in the first quarter. So they're not getting it done in the first quarter either, which is concerning for some of these teams tonight, except I think for the Sixers, is because they're the only ones that are actually showing up and showing out here early in these games. But does that surprise you that even the first quarter, they can't get it done?
It does, because when I pulled the record, Joe, now the database I use does not have first quarter and first half lines, so I can't go back and break these out. But you look at the chart, and if we can throw it up for one more second, in the middle in the green, you see the home favorite records are only 10 and 11 for the full game. But look to the right, Joe, those home favorites have actually outscored their opponents in the first quarter by 3.1 points per game. Now, the misleading thing is this. We could have had two games where they won by 20 points. So when I'm looking at all 21 games, it shows a 3.1 average and not looking at individually. So if people say, well, how the heck can those 21 games be so much of an advantage for the home favorite that it's a negative record? You have to remember, these are the averages, and we might have had a couple outlier games which spread out the average. So I don't have that data to share with you saying game by game what happened, but I think it's this. We have a bigger discrepancy now. And, take a look at the bottom of that chart, Joe. Round 1, 0-2 home teams. With 1 day rest, they're actually 0-9, which makes sense to me. The better team is up 2-0. The other team doesn't have time to rest. The other team doesn't have time to adjust. So there are no 1 day rest situations this year. Everyone has 2 days, so it doesn't apply. But I did want to point it out to you that it's basically a 50-50 for home teams, full game after that situation.
So I got it since 2021, Ralph, and I believe we got Steve back in the house here. He was about to jump into the financial market comparison, and his ass froze on us. But since 2021, first quarter, 8-13 against the number in the first quarter. So, Merril, to your point, it has certainly caught up over these last couple of years, and it's just ironic that we have three teams all in the same spot on the same night at this point in game threes in this postseason here. But what is your comparison to the financial markets here?
Yeah, so I'm glad I know where it cut off, because I talked for another 2 to 3 minutes, finished talking, I got no reply, and I realized I'd frozen. And there was a little pop-up box in the corner here on VMix, which I ignored as I was talking, so I had a feeling, but I thought I saw Joe moving. So I just kept going. Hey, if it happens again, good news is I broke down all three games in depth last night. The video's been up since 6 a.m. this morning. You can catch my breakdown for every playoff game every day for the next 2 months here on WagerTalk TV. So if I continue to freeze and the financial markets continue to freeze me because they don't want that great insight I'm about to drop, be sure to check that out. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. What I was saying was it's hard to fathom that a couple years ago, like in some countries, you're getting negative interest rates on like savings bonds. It just made no sense. And now fast forward, we're at 5-6% everywhere. It's the same thing we're going to talk about with this Lakers-Nuggets game coming up in a few minutes, is that we have a situation where the Lakers are a bigger favorite in the first quarter than the entire game, and also the first half, of course. And this is something we never would have seen even a few years ago. So the markets do correct. The odds makers, the betting public, they understand Ralph's charts show that these teams start hot. With that said, I do still think there's certain situations where it works better than others. And this is a textbook example of it for a few reasons. Orlando Magic, the best point spread team in the league the last couple seasons. And that's because they're an underrated, up-and-coming young team that had struggled in the years past. Guess who that team was just a couple years ago before them? It was the Oklahoma City Thunder, the most profitable team in the league for a couple years. They were covering, not always winning, not winning playoff games. Now they're the number one seed in the West just a couple years later. So I do think there's upside with Orlando. It's understandable why they struggled on the road. And just look at their home-road split this year. As is often the case with up-and-coming young teams, they've played much better at home than on the road. In fact, they're 29-11 straight up at home. They're just 18-28 straight up on the road. That's a huge split there. So there are reasons to think they play better tonight. And also, I do expect them to come out fast with the energy of that home crowd getting a rare playoff game. So this is one of those situations where I think the first half, even the first quarter play, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's we got some interesting comments coming in from the chat room. We'll get your thoughts on this one here. Is it fair to say, though, Merril, that maybe the market was wrong about Cleveland early on? And because I thought this, after what we saw from Cleveland in the first two games, I thought for sure this line might have been a little bit closer to a pick 'em even still here, but they're still holding strong at 2.5. So the market apparently thinks Orlando is prime for a comeback here and to be able to get themselves into this. But maybe the Cavs were just, are they being undervalued here a little bit? Because when this started, a lot of people thought this was a coin flip series anyway. I haven't seen that in the first two games. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I definitely didn't think it was. First of all, Cleveland's a $2 favorite. They were minus 200 in the series. I had a strong best bet on Cleveland on Saturday in game one for my clients at WagerTalk. And I agree with what Ralph said earlier. This is a team that has not been healthy for several months. When they were healthy back a couple months ago, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like a 16-1 run or something. They had one of the best winning streaks, winning runs of the league all season. So this is a very good team, and they have a superstar in Mitchell, and they're going to win this series. But if Orlando's going to get a game, it would be tonight. History says it's going to be tonight, and it might not happen. And I will say this, if they lose tonight, I would think they're going to get swept because this is by far the best situational setup they're going to be in.
Yeah. Ralph, 200, 201 is a total here. Disgusting on so many levels, but if it ain't broke, we probably shouldn't fix it with these two teams, or should we?
Well, Joe, I went back and forth on the total, and you think the Cavs, you think under. When I looked at Orlando at home against winning teams this year, they actually had 3 overs and 12 unders, 3 overs and 10 unders. So they were a significant under team at home. But, again, these are where you have to worry about the adjustments. We also have seen Vegas and sports books make huge jumps. Game one of the Cavs series was, I'm trying to pull it up. I don't have it on the top of my head. Game one was, okay, we don't have that much of a break. Game one was 206. Game two was 205.5, and now we're down to 200. So we have a 6.5 point difference. When we talk about the Lakers, game one of the Lakers and Denver to tonight is a 10-point difference. The total has dropped 10 points with those first two games going over. So yes, you want to think if you have a series and you have a defensive-minded series, you want to bet under, but you also have to be careful to look at how much the line has moved and how much of an outlier performance was. Listen, I have to think Cleveland is going to shoot better than 41 and 40, 44, and the Magic have to shoot better than 32 and 36%. So, yes, they only scored 181 and they went under by 24.5 points. The outliers in this game and the way the line has moved by 5.5 points has me off it. I would lean under, but again, that's not even an opinion for the show.
Steve, we've talked about this a few times, though, and I get overreaction, but good Christ, Orlando hasn't scored more than 86 points in 2 games, and their team total is 101 here tonight. Are they going to make up the difference? We all know role players play better at home, right? I do happen to think that the Magic getting a good night's sleep in their own beds, going to familiar court in the having the home fans there, role players will certainly play better here tonight. But from 86 to over 100, man, we need a lot to go right for Orlando here tonight, don't we?
Well, they score almost 5 points more per game at home than on the road. It's about a 4 to 5% increase in scoring. So once again, they've had extreme home road dichotomy, 29 and 12. I said 29 and 11 earlier. I believe they're 29 and 12 at home, but just 18 and 25 away with those 2 losses at Cleveland now. So I do expect them to play better tonight, and that probably is going to translate offensively. So once again, if they're going to have a situation where they go over, it's going to be tonight. And let's not forget, they only got 83 and 86 points, but they shot 32.5 and 36% from the field. If they shoot in the low 30s again, they're going to lose and they're going to stay under their total. But they're getting enough shot attempts to get into the 100s. They just aren't hitting them. And once again, teams normally shoot better at home than they do away. And that's been Orlando this year. They're 49% at home, only about 45.5% shooting on the road. So there's lots of reasons to think they bounce back tonight in game 3.
Well, it's good. There are a lot of folks in the chat room in agreement with you on this one, Merril, too. Big shout out to Timothy hanging out in YouTube Shorts. Big shout out to those of you hanging out on Instagram. Little day drinking going on. We'll get to that in just a minute. And, of course, Big Daddy in the house. Eric is here. John Finley is here. The crew ready to roll here, including we just heard from him, Merril. S.Warriors just popped into the Shorts chat room, and his first question was, just wanted to do a wellness check on everyone that picked the Celtics last night, and you won't find many of them in here, S.Warrior, I don't believe. But we do have a very interesting game 3 coming up in Philly tonight, and, of course, Dan Alexander, who's already chirping in the chat room. And I'll give you 3 guesses there, Ralph, as to who the hell he's picking here tonight. 5.5. This is a huge swing, too. This is a very interesting line that we're looking at here now. 5.5. I can make the argument, Ralph. You can make the argument, right, that the Sixers did everything right except win the game. And we have yet to see Jalen Brunson be a factor in this. If it wasn't for rebounding, the Knicks would be down 0-2. So Philadelphia has looked like they certainly have enough to be able to win this game and get back in this series, but you still got to go out and execute. Are you all right with the 5.5 that we're seeing here?
No, I fortunately got down on a money line parlay that we won the first half. So I just have Philly to win the game tonight. So I do have that. You know, the thing that is scary is this. Yes, we're going to assume that Embiid is healthier than he was. Very confidently said they're going to come back, they're going to win. But it's scary when I could jump higher than Embiid. So I just want to point that out that, you know, you look at Philadelphia's box score, Joe, and if I tell you the 76ers shot 42.9%, the Knicks shot 40.7%. The Philadelphia 76ers shot 36.1% from 3. New York shot 33.3%. They made 16 and 19 free throws. You look at that box score, you go, Philadelphia had to win the game. I mean, you know, shooting better from 2, shooting better from 3, and only shooting 3 fewer field goals. But, you know, you look at Philadelphia and you look at the Knicks, and you got to remember, you know, the Knicks, there's only been 11 2 seeds that have been a dog of 4 or more, and they've gone 3-9 against the spread. So there's a reason they're a dog. Remember, Philadelphia was likely going to be the 2 seed before the Embiid injury. So if Embiid is healthy, I have no problems laying it with Philadelphia in this game. But his injury did have me going the money line route and not going full game. But, you know, I look at them and, you know, they actually shot better in both percentage and field goal games. But, you know, Maxi's playing the way he is. Philadelphia's playing the way he is. You know, the seeding, you throw the seeding out the window with these two. I still do lean with Philadelphia, even minus the points. But again, not going to get to the window with it. And fortunately, a while ago, I played a money line parlay with the 76ers. So I'm alive in that, looking for at least the win tonight.
We should say, too, Merril, right? I mean, we make fun of how bad offensively watching the Orlando and Cleveland series has been. Well, you know, the third worst offensive performance has been here so far through the playoffs. It's the Knicks. They are not exactly an offensive juggernaut here thus far, which means Philly's doing a very good job of limiting them. Certainly, Brunson really is the job that they're doing. But I'll say it again: if it wasn't for the rebounding advantage that they've had thus far, this would be a totally different series. We're talking what, a 3.5 point favorite in game 2 is what the Knicks closed as, but they ended up Philly ended up covering it anyway, so it was a wild line move from game 1 to game 2. Is this too much of a line move from game 2 to game 3 for you?
It's a substantial line move, but it, of course, had the uncertainty of Maxey and Embiid built into game 2. They both ended up playing full minutes, scoring a ton of points. And then we have the whole 0-2 bounce back situation. But yeah, we're talking about almost 5 to 6 baskets adjustment. We're like a 10-point adjustment here from 4.5 to like 5.5 the other way. It opened briefly 3.5. When I did my video last night, it was 4.5, and now it's 5.5. And even this afternoon, I saw one of the sharper offshore books hit 6. So we might see more 6s by tip-off. So once again, if you like the Knicks, I would hold back and wait. We're seeing some 6s out there now. And if you like Philly, you probably got to grab the 5.5. You've already missed the 4.5, and I would see the value is probably diminishing at this point. And it's not like baseball. They can win and not cover, of course, because this has been a tight series. But at worst, Philadelphia should be 1-1, and they could easily be 2-0. They've had double-digit leads in both games. They've had leads in the fourth quarter in both games. What was it? The Knicks scored, I believe, the last 8 points in 28 seconds the other night, and it was inexcusable not calling the timeout late there. You know, Nick Nurse won the title in 19 with the Raptors. He was out of a job a few years later, and now you got to start questioning him once again. I thought that was some terrible clock management, game decision situation to give the other team the chance to even get the ball back in the backcourt like they did. Maxey was, of course, questionable with an illness. What does he do? He ends up scoring 35 after having only 33 in game 1. He had a better game, technically. Embiid did not look fully healthy halfway through game 1. He did play well. But as Ralph said, I don't think he's 100%. And the risk you have with the Sixers is that he is one play away from being out of this series. I still think he's going to get injured at some point. He just is playing with fire. With that said, though, this does look like a good bounce back. And if Maxey and Embiid stay healthy and play the whole game, I do like Philly here. And another situation where I would expect them to probably come out fast. You know, two ways to look at it. You could say, well, New York has the momentum after Philly collapsed in game 2, but they also gave up the lead in game 1, and they came back and they outscored them. I believe it was 25-18 in the first quarter in game 2 the other night. Yep. So if that's the case, Philly probably comes out strong again.
Yeah, and it's I know there's a lot of guys questioning whether or not this would be the time maybe to fade Brunson, because certainly the Knicks seem to be public. Merril is that favorite here, which means that the Knicks are going to get a lot of public love. Brunson's going to get a lot of public love. I know you've got the videos posted. You've talked a lot of props here. It seems like Knicks fans are just waiting for Brunson to erupt, but I don't know that this is a great matchup for him in this series against Philly.
Yeah, the problem is he's taken a ton of shot attempts. In fact, in that 104-101 win, he had 29 attempts, and he was still only 1 for 6 from 3, and he still got to 24 points. So if he keeps taking that kind of a volume from the field, he's going to be tough. You pointed out some of the low-scored, ugly games. Don't forget, a lot of guys were out. I think Brunson and Embiid were both out in that game in March, which got to like the 150 range. But they have played some ugly, low-scoring games, which also makes it kind of difficult to play the over props. Hart is another guy that played extremely well in game 2, and he played well in game 1. We talked about him the other night. He's now had 22 and 21 points. His totals were 11.5 and 12.5. Now it's 13.5. So if you're looking for someone to regress, maybe it's Josh Hart. And it cracks me up, man. They had 3 Villanova guys from the 17 team out there the other night as they win that game. And I go back and look. The Villanova team was the number 1 overall seed in 17, and they got bumped by Wisconsin, I think, in the second round. And if I'm not mistaken, they won it in 16 and 18. But how loaded was those Villanova squads with all those guys that are out there now? Josh Hart, Brunson. I mean, they're winning shot hit by a guy from Villanova. It's just incredible what's going on.
It's truly incredible on what's happening in that one there. I mean, Hart, Brunson I remember when Brunson was so excited when they actually traded for Hart last year. They had the camera on him. He was like beside himself to get his brother there. So they still got some work to do, though. Not going to be easy. Philly's not going to roll over, especially at home, whether or not Embiid is 100% or not. That game should be a pretty close one. By the way, first quarter, 2.5 is what the Sixers are laying. They've done a pretty good job so far there in the first quarter in this series. Got to lay 2.5 here tonight if you think the Sixers continue that trend and come out firing at home and have the lead as they get ready to go to the second. Team totals also looks like 101 for Philly, under 100 points for the Knicks, which is also interesting. That could be an interesting angle. Don't forget, by the way, if you get a chance, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. We'd certainly appreciate it for you. Those that are hanging with us here on IG, follow us. We'd certainly appreciate that, as well as we've got one more game here to break down. We got a bunch of questions coming in. And if you have any particular questions, drop them in the chat room, guys. We'll get to as many as we can. So let us take a look here at the Lakers tonight as they get to take on their nemesis, that being the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets just absolutely refuse to lose to the Lakers under any circumstances in any way. It really doesn't make a difference how well they've been playing, Ralph, because they've been playing great and they still can't beat the Nuggets here. It's kind of crazy over the last couple of seasons, but the Nuggets are the champs, right? They're the champs until somebody beats them. Well, they got to go on the road here. And what are the Lakers? Still -1, somewhere in that ballpark there? What are you thinking we're going to get in this game 3 tonight?
I'm thinking Lakers fans are saying, okay, we shot out Denver 49.4% to 46.1 in game 1, and we lost. We outshot Denver 48.7 to 44.3. Those are 3% edges shooting on the road, and you still can't win. So, I mean, you look at Denver. Why did Denver win those games? They had 13 turnovers in 2 games, 4 turnovers in game 1, 9 turnovers in game 2. The Lakers with 26 turnovers in 2 games. So a 26-13 edge in turnovers. That's the difference in this game. Listen, are you going to hold Denver to 46 and 44% again? Hell no. You look at Denver's 5 games prior, they averaged 53% shooting. But I want to talk about the total in this game. And, you know, part of the chart, when I was doing that chart, the 0-2 teams, the 500 numbers were basically even. And if I asked our audience, which half is higher scoring, first half or second half? Dan, I didn't throw this part on the chart, so we don't even need the chart for this, but thank you.
What do you think? He's got one chart, Dan? Like the dude's got more than one chart, man. It's not always the same chart when he calls for it.
I didn't make a chart for this, but am I?
So
are you guys? Well, Joe yells at me when you have too many charts. What the hell? I mean, Joe's like
your chart right here, Ralph. Dad,
Joe's saying. Joe slacks me. You know, every time you put up a freaking chart, Ralph, they don't show my face. I want them to see my pretty face all the time. So if I have the chart, then Joe gets pissed at me. So I got to make sure I limit the amount of charts, especially now that he has his hat on. So
how about a chart with Joe's face on it? That would solve the problem.
Maybe he won't. All right. So does this surprise you guys? 0-2 teams at home. The first half has averaged 104.2 points per game. The second half has averaged only 99.6%. I would think you would say, well, a team 0-2, if they're down, they're going to start fouling early. You're going to have a lot more scoring in the second half. But that has not been the case. Again, 104 for the first half, 99 in the second half. The first half for all those 0-2 teams has been higher. And you look at the lines. When you look at the lines, we all know that the first half line is usually about 48% of the full game. Well, the Lakers' first half line, this game, is 111. The full game is 217. So it's complete opposite. The 0-2 teams, higher scoring in the first half. Vegas lines, much higher in the second half. So it's giving you value. If you like these 0-2 teams and you like playing the over, do play the over. I do like this first half over, as I was actually thinking about, I talked about it on WagerTalk today, and I thought about loading it. Lakers versus winning teams this year. First half, 119 points per game. Second half, the teams have averaged 109. They're plus 10 points per game in the first half. Denver on the road, first half scoring 116. Denver second half on the road, 108. another 7+ point edge for Denver in the first half. So 0-2 teams score more in the first half. Lakers versus winning teams score more in the first half. Denver away scores more in the first half. And what are you doing? You are actually getting a line which is more attractive for the first half at 111. So put it together. I do like Denver in this game. I did not get to the window with it, but I think Denver has much more room for improvement. You look at what LeBron and Anthony did. They had a great game, but they still lost. So my best bet for the show, Denver and the Lakers over 111, but I do like Denver as well.
Catch you slipping saying, listen, Miami kicking the piss out of Boston last night should be more than enough motivation for them to come back and win one here against the team, Merril, which they're 0 for what? The last 2 years, I think? Was it December of 2022, I think, when we looked it up. Right. It's been forever. And not to mention, every time Los Angeles has tried to celebrate the Kobe statue, getting their rings, they've always played Denver and lost. So maybe don't celebrate anything anytime that you're playing Denver here. But, to Ralph's point here, first half line, this was almost, I saw this at 2.5 this morning. That's what the Lakers were laying in the first half. Merril, they're only 1 for the game. It's come back down. I'm seeing 1.5 now because it makes sense. But, I mean, come on. We're laying 2 points in the first half, but only 1 for the game? What's going on with this series?
Yeah, it's crazy. And don't forget, LeBron's 40,000th point was Denver back in early March as well. That was another one you pointed out, which I thought was funny. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it rhymes. And, Ralph does a lot of back testing. I appreciate it as well. And you don't always look for the exact same result, but it is pretty eerie how similar this series is rhyming to last year. Let's flash back to last May. It's the Western Conference Finals, and the Lakers lose both games 1-2 at Denver like they did this year, but they covered both of them. They were both close losses. Games in which LA had a chance of winning. In fact, game one really wasn't a chance to win. I'll correct that. They were down by 18 at the half, and then they only ended up losing by 6. They showed a lot of fight, and that fight carried over because the Lakers had a 5-point lead in game 2 at the half, ended up losing by 5. Well, they blow a double-digit lead in game 1, end up losing a close one, or not a close one, by 11, a game that was close. And then they have a 15-point lead in game 2 the other night. They were up by 20 in the second half, and it was never in doubt who was going to cover. In fact, I had a strong best bet on the Lakers for my clients on Monday night, at WagerTalk.com, part of this 6-0 start to the playoffs for me. The only concern I had, and it was a legitimate concern, was that damn game was going to go to overtime because the Lakers were gassed. And I was about to see another Oregon-Creighton moment to flash back to some heartbreak I had in the NCAA tournament. So I was glad that Denver pulled out the regulation win because the Lakers had nothing left. So I think it makes sense that they are a bigger favorite in the first quarter and the first half than the full game. And I also think it makes sense what Ralph was talking about, that the first halves are higher scoring because those teams usually come out with some punch at home, and it shows on the offensive side. And the Lakers are an aging team. LeBron is obviously aging. Davis is always banged up with something. So not a shock that they've been faltering in the second half. And we saw last year after the Lakers near miss in game 2 that they did not rebound in this situation. And that's why I'm bringing up the historical element, because in game 3 last year, they lost outright by 11 as a 5.5-point home favorite in game 3. They trailed by 3 at the half. By the way, there was 113 points at the half. It was high scoring. And then game 4 was really weird. They actually had a 15-point lead at the half in game 4 and still lost by 2. So hard to trust LA. If you're going to trust LA, you probably want to play them early, but the betting markets are well aware of that. And once again, a rare situation where not only the first half, but the first quarter line itself, as you said, Joe, is bigger than the full game. But it makes a lot of sense when you look back at the history of this series.
So,
all right, Joe, I went to the database, Joe.
Don't tell me you got another freaking chart, Ralph. Don't tell me there's another. No. Don't call for another chart.
All I'm going to do is to quantify what you said. God, I am going to get a picture of Joe. That's a great idea. All of my charts from here on out will have a picture of Joe's face on it with the chart.
I'm here for you,
Joe.
It's a win-win.
The Lakers' last win against Denver was December 16th, 2022.
So December, so 2022, which is
Yeah.
It's just the clock is continuing to tick here, people. And it may not happen this year that they end up getting a win against them here. It's absolutely kind of crazy. But, Ralph, looking at point-wise here, I know you went first half in this game. Would it shock you if this was the highest scoring game of the night here, full game-wise, that we got more points in this game than any other? Although I got to give LA credit. I mean, both teams have been kind of playing some solid defense in this series, but it ain't going to be Orlando-Cleveland getting all the points here tonight. Do you think that maybe this one is the one where we'll start getting, we should be looking at the over for the full game?
Yeah, as I said, I think there's value with the under because of the way the lines are usually made, that the second halves are. But, we'll see how much LeBron's whining about the refs, if it has any effect. People are going to, every time they call a foul on Denver, people are going to be screaming, oh, my God, it's LeBron. The league doesn't want LeBron to get swept, and you're going to hear all those conspiracy theories. So, we don't think about this, but I'll tell you what, the refs have a lot of pressure tonight. I mean, Granted, they all know what the news said. I mean, it was major news story, LeBron whining like he did. So I don't know if the refs, shut LeBron up by calling a foul on him on the first play of the game. That would sort of be funny if it happens. But I'm as much interested as in that part of the aspect. But I do agree. I think this is by far, the one game that if any game is going to roll over the total, let me put it this way. If I were playing an alternate total where I wanted to play a higher total, it would definitely be in this game to get plus money at a higher total number. Then I would feel comfortable betting the other games that I like under the total with an alternate under total for plus money. So thinking it that perspective, if you weigh the lefts and the rights, this is the game that I would feel most comfortable. So I certainly agree with your thought process that this game would be the most favorable to play the over and go over by a significant number.
I know Timothy in the shorts chat there, Merril, wants to know your thoughts on the total in this game. Are you in agreement that maybe the over is not a bad way to look in this one? And I'll tell you, team total 108.5 for the Lakers, 108.5 for the Nuggets. So does 108 or 110 points win this game? And if so, who the hell gets it?
By the way, speaking of the officiating, before I get to that, Scott Foster is the crew chief for one of the games tonight, but it happens not to be the Laker game. It's the Orlando-Cleveland game. So that might bode well for Orlando if he's the extender, as people often think he is. So we'll see if the home teams are getting some calls early in that game. Wouldn't that have been something, though, if he was the LA? That's why I had to look, because I was like, wow. I knew he was up tonight because I hadn't seen him for a couple nights, but he's in Orlando, not LA. As far as the total in this game, the first thing that jumps out to me is we have seen a pretty big drop, as Ralph had talked about earlier, from the game one, even the game two lines. But it's been warranted because those lines were too high. The two unders have been legitimate unders. They land 217. They go under the 227 in game one. And the two teams shot 49 and 46% from the field. Lakers were a little bit below average from three, but both teams are almost 83, 90% from the free throw line. So that's pretty much where it should have been. And then you look at game two, they only get to 200 points, stays well under the 224. But once again, 49 and 44%. The big difference there, though, is that Denver was only 23.5 from three. They should shoot better, but they're on the road now. So they've dropped this total, but for the right reason. One thing I will point out, Ralph talked about how these first halves are higher scoring a lot of times in these game threes, especially. And we also obviously have talked about with the chart we've seen multiple times that the first half favors those teams that are down 0-2 and then they regress a little. What that would tell me is that the first half team total over for those 0-2 teams might be the strongest possible play. So that might be the way to play this Laker game tonight as well, as Lakers team total over in the first half. And that would make a lot of sense because they have obviously hit a wall and regressed in the second half so far in this series.
Now, I don't have them in front of me here, but some of these future prices here in the series prices, Merril, we talked a little bit about these yesterday looking forward. And I got to think, I mean, what are the chances that all three of these teams at home down 0-2 are going to be down 3-0 at this time tomorrow? It's very, very possible. But if there's a team that you like right now that you think, listen, they're not going out without a fight, who should you look at when it comes to the series prices, whether it be games, whether it be a come-from-behind victory here? Is there any one of these series here that you would look at?
It's not likely, first of all. The odds of all three of these road teams winning, I got about 7% because they're all three underdogs.
Less than that, I think.
So, yeah, it's probably even less. So, and we got the extender, Scott Foster, in Orlando. So,
yes.
Look, a home team's going to win tonight. Maybe probably two of the three most likely win. And then again, when I did the video, by the way, last night, the Nuggets had gone from pick'em to -1. Denver was actually a favorite yesterday on Wednesday afternoon, and now they're a dog. So we have seen some weird line movement in that game. The adjusted series price, looking ahead to Saturday real quick, the Celtics, this one is amazing, Joe. I saw them at 1-200 yesterday, as we talked about on the show, when they were up 1-0. Miami was like 80-1. Now Miami is 8-1. The Celtics are 1-16. That's insane if you think about it. When the series opened, it was 1-100. Yesterday, it's 1-200. Now it's 1-16. I'm not in a hurry to lay 16-1 on anything, but that seems like a vast overreaction. I know it's because, once again, we saw what happened last year, but the Miami was red hot from three, and the Celtics have a tendency to let their foot off the gas, as we talked about. So I know we're talking the night series, but I had to point that out. I mean, what an incredible drop just because the Heat won one game on the road with some random shooting. As the other series go, the Cavs are a 9-1 favorite, take back 6-1 in Orlando. If Orlando wins tonight, as they should, as a small favorite, you got to figure that's going to be cut in half. So I don't know if the Magic can come back and win that series because Cleveland is my preferred side. So I wouldn't necessarily jump in on that one. The Sixers are over 3-1, and they could easily be up 2-0. So that's probably the one of the three games tonight. By the way, the Lakers are 8-1, Nuggets 1-16. The Sixers are the one team tonight. If you do think they're going to win, they probably do win as a 5.5-point favorite. You can make an argument putting a little bit on the money line at plus 330 for the series because that'll be a lot lower, obviously, tomorrow.
Over 5.5 games, by the way, for that Sixers-Knicks series, minus 125 over or under, rather, at plus 110. So there is still some value in some of these for these games here tonight, Ralph, coming across. I mean, listen, very unlikely any of these teams come back from 2-0, but never say never. But the reality is, can we get to 6-7 games? Because now would be the time to back that price right now with these games here tonight. And to your point, Merril, I just looked. You're talking about almost even money for the series to end in 5 for Boston and Miami. Even money. So if you think that was an anomaly last night, even money, you can get Boston to win this, to win it in 5.
Yeah, it comes down if they win one of the two on the road. Because I don't think, I don't know. Last year, Boston lost 1-2 at home and 7. So I guess it could happen. History rhymes, like I said, but I don't think this is the same Miami team.
Joe, even money would be better. If you took Miami and took Boston and rolled over the money line, you know what I mean? It's going to be close. There's a lot of times we always say rolling over the money line is better.
Right.
Even money is not bad to not have to risk much in this. I did want to point one thing out that I found interesting in the Lakers box score against Denver. Mm-hmm. How many times do you have a playoff game that's decided by 2 points where none of your starters played 40 minutes? Ooh. That's how old this Lakers team is. None of the starting 5 against Denver played 40 minutes. That is shocking to me to look at a box score and not see anyone play that. So, we make fun of how old the Lakers are. And we talk about, there hasn't been an injury report all season that LeBron and Anthony Davis haven't been on. Maybe the opener, but I can't remember back that far. But, to me, that's something to keep an eye on. Now, granted, Davis did play 39 and James played 38, but you're talking a down the stretch, fourth quarter game that was tied, and you have to worry about managing your stars' minutes. That's a big disadvantage to coach the playoffs in that type of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some questions here, Merril, about it's one thing to play in Denver with the older Laker team, and obviously we've watched them time and time again run out of gas late. That shouldn't happen here tonight, right? That should that ability to be able to leave Denver, come back, be at home here for a day or so. We shouldn't see anybody wilting down the stretch here tonight, or do you think it really doesn't matter at this point?
Well, let's once again look at history. Last year in the 4 games of the Western Conference Finals, they're down by 18 in game 1 at Denver. They only lose by 6. Game 2, they get outscored by 10 in the second half. And that's where they got outscored by even more than that in this last game. They got outscored by 17 in the second half. But then they go home to game 3 last time, and they're down at the half by 3, and they get outscored by another 8 in the second half. And then game 4 last year, they're up by 15 at the half, and they get outscored by 17 in the second half. So they actually got outscored in both home games 3 and 4 last year in the Western Conference Finals. So maybe it's not as much of an altitude thing. And I do think there is reason to think that LeBron wears down. He's a great player. And in my overnight video, by the way, I really got some comments going because I said, and I was being sincere, for the first time watching game 2 the other night, especially that first half, I'm starting to think LeBron might be the best ever. He made a couple passes that were just insane in that game. He got a rebound under the basket and just threw it sideways, 3/4 court, hit the guys in the hand. I mean, it's just amazing how he passes the ball. With that said, the guy has played NBA more than half his life. He's been a professional basketball player. He's in his late 30s. He can't be as fresh late in the game. He just can't be. It's just it's a physical thing. So I do think it makes sense. If you like the Lakers, they probably have to jump out fast tonight. I would not expect them to catch up and play from behind in the second half, even at home.
Yeah, I got
Joe, I got a chart for you.
Yeah, I knew it. I was coming right back to you. Go ahead. Give me that chart,
Jesus.
Ralph.
Oh, that looks familiar.
But I did go to the database as Steve was talking. You guys were talking about the altitude off the Nuggets.
Yes.
When I looked since January 9th, when teams played at Denver, and then they're playing their next game at home, they are 1-11 against the spread. So perhaps there is a longer carryover with that altitude. Yes, you have 2 days rest, but there's been a lot of 2 days rest in that period. I did something with Steve last year talking about baseball teams after they played the Rockies. It actually affected their first game. We've talked about it with the Broncos as well. But since February 8th, so the second half of the season, when teams play at Denver and then play their next game at home, 1-11 ATS.
Interesting number there. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I love it. I think that's an awesome angle. And, once again, 30-some years of Utah and Denver, everybody knows about altitude. Same with college basketball. But even myself, Ralph, I don't think about the carryover effect of the altitude. And that's something that's probably not priced in as much. And obviously, with a point spread record 1-11, it's not being priced in. And as you said, it also crosses over to different sports, which you love to see because then it shows there's some validity to it. So I think that's something worth keeping an eye on.
So, Merril, in your videos here, by the way, guys, you can find the links in the description here as he's broken down all the games coming up here. You've been doing a lot of props in there. Was there one game or one prop that stuck out to you a little more than the rest here tonight?
Yeah, it's funny, Joe. These game 3s, I didn't see as much value from the props. I think one of the reasons is game 1 to game 2, everything is in the same arena. Quick turnaround with less rest. And what I like to look for, once again, is guys that have maybe been getting a lot of shot attempts. I'm kind of using a zigzag. What I'm doing in these videos, as I mentioned in the video to the viewers, is that I'm using almost a modified zigzag to handicap the prop market. We're going to see how it turns out. So far, it's been working pretty well. And I'll give you an example. Game 2 the other night in that Laker game, I like D'Angelo Russell's prop over because he'd had a lot of shot attempts. I think he was like 1 for 9 from 3 in the first game. And he came out ahead a monster game. He had 7 threes. He had 6 of them in the first half. He went over the total based on threes alone in the first half. But now they've obviously caught up. They've moved that total up a couple points. So I would not recommend Russell anymore. Some Orlando Magic players I would look at because, as we talked about, they've been really bad offensively on the road in the first couple games. But I would expect them to play better and shoot better at home. So if you're looking for some upside, Banchero's getting a lot of looks. But a guy I did mention in the video is Franz Wagner. He had 17 shot attempts in game 2. He only made 5 of them, and he still got to 18 points. And his total on that was 19.5. It's 19.5 again tonight. If he hits anywhere near his norm, he would have been in the 20-point range. So Wagner could have a breakout game tonight at home for Orlando.
You certainly can, but you shouldn't. We talked about, was it yesterday? I believe we talked about the rebounding effect there in one of those games last night. And I got to tell you, I mean, Allen with Cleveland there, Ralph, has been an absolute rebounding monster. And I believe it was, who was it last night? Was it Valanciunas? I think it was Valanciunas with New Orleans there, Merril. We talked about it yesterday. His number was 10.5 in game one. He got like 20 of them in there. I think he had a pretty good night last night as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Jaren Allen, too, another monster couple of games. And his number, 13.5, I believe, 12.5, 13.5 rebounds here. Ralph, you've watched this Cleveland team. The size advantage has clearly affected Orlando here. Is that a way you would look over here? Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They got no answer for it.
I'm going to throw out a rebounding guy, Joe, just tonight that blew my mind. I had to double look at the box score. Hart had 15 rebounds in the last game against Philadelphia.
Yes, he did.
I mean,
as well.
what the hell is that to have 15 rebounds? Are you kidding me? But yeah, I just think I think the way the Cavs have rebounded, Orlando has to make some adjustments. Banchero just can't stay outside as much. He's got to come in to force that on Allen. And I think that's the problem, is that Allen can go out and guard him and still come back and rebounding, but it takes them out of the game. So there's no question that I think they continue being the much better team on the rebounding side. We know with the two bigs in the middle, them playing the three guards and the two bigs, it is just, I think, is a great matchup for them versus the Magic.
18 boards in game one, Merril. He got 20 in game two. His number's 12.5 here tonight. I mean, if it ain't broke, right, don't fix it here. With the guy is an absolute, he's just eating in the paint, man. I mean, and they have really no answer for him at this point.
Correct. I think that's why, I talk about using the zigzag, with props, but we also got to be smart about it, right? Like, I'm not looking to fade Banchero tonight at home in a bounce back spot. He's playing 41 minutes a game. He's getting to the 20s every game. I'm just not going to play his under either. I'm just going to stay away. And some guys that are dominating rebounding wise are the same thing. They just have a physical advantage, and teams often play more zone nowadays to take away the three, and some teams are playing less zone. That makes a difference if you rebound or not. And Oklahoma City Thunder, for example, the team we were talking about last night, they've had problems all season with the rebounding. That's been their weakness, offensive rebounding. It's just the way they play offensively. They're not in the spot to get the rebounds. So you got to be careful to try to get too smart with the bounce backs in the prop market. Sometimes guys continue to dominate, and if the price is fair, I have no problem stepping in. Another guy for Orlando real quick is Isaac. He was 1 for 7 from three-point range, and every one of his shots, all 8 of them, came from three, and he only played 19 minutes. And he was listed as the starting center, which is just insane with only 3 points. His prop is 14.5 tonight. And keep in mind, he had 15, 18, and 14 the 3 games before that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him bounce back with some more points tonight at home.
You know what, Joe?
Go ahead, Ralph.
One thing that you have to remember, now it's not really a correlated parlay. We talk about correlated parlays. Well, part of the reason he had so many boards is that Orlando missed 58 shots in game one. They missed 51 shots in game two. So if you think they're going to shoot 45%, perhaps you don't want to play that, because he's going to have many fewer opportunities with those missed shots. So to me, if you think the game's going to be under, that's the sort of correlation that you would want to bet his rebounds to go over. If you think Orlando is going to play well, then to me, that's counterintuitive to what, Allen is cleaning up the boards.
Outstanding point. And to your point, Ralph, though, Hart tonight, 12.5 rebounds is what we're seeing. The guy has been an absolute machine for them. And and they've got a couple of big statues in there, but yet he has been all over. And 12.5 boards for Hart here, Merril, is a lot. Do we anticipate he's going to be able to keep doing it out there? Especially, when you got Hartenstein out there, you got Mitchell out there, and yet he has been the dominating force when it comes to rebounds here.
Something else to keep in mind, too, from a matchup perspective, the money's coming in on Philly. They're now up to -5.5, almost 6. They should win the game, which means they're going to shoot better. They're going to make more shots. They're going to miss less shots. That also leads to less defensive rebounds, especially. So I think it all plays a part in how you look at these rebounding props, as you want to kind of be on the team that's probably going to be the better team in the game. And New York might not be that team tonight.
Yeah, I agree here. All right, so the chat's asking one more time. We'll go around the horn. Ralph, we broke down the games. Which one of these bets do you like a little more than the rest here for a best bet on the show?
No question. Lakers over first half for me. I am still weighing whether I maybe put it in as a small 1 or 2% play for my clients. So to me, it's not only best bet worthy, it's very close to being a potential play.
All right, likes it. First half up and over there. Get involved there with the Lakers at home there. Merril, how about you? Which one of these are you leaning towards?
Well, I think that Philly price is getting pretty expensive now. 5.5, 6 is a lot more than the 3.5, 4.5 we saw a day ago. But the first half line is more reasonable compared to Orlando and the Laker game, where they're the same, if not higher than the full game. So I think probably the way to get some value still is with Philly first half. And yes, you do worry about a hangover after blowing that lead, but they came out and outscored the Knicks by 7 on the road the other day in game 2 after blowing game 1. So I think they come out strong tonight in the first half, even the first quarter.
All right, there you go. I'm going to go Miami Heat. Go figure. We're going to take the Heat in game number 3 at home here to take a 2-1 lead, and then collectively we can sit back and watch the Boston faithful hyperventilate and pass out here, as there's no way they can win another game. Well, you have to come back tomorrow and find out here, as we're going to be breaking down the whole slate coming up over the weekend in the NBA. We'll have a lot more for you here on the NBA Tip-Off Show. Do us a favor if you could. That thumbs up would be much appreciated, guys. And don't forget, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Follow us as well on Instagram if you haven't done that yet. Of course, we have a full slate again coming up. Ralph's got a Gucci pen that was just gifted to us. Is that a Gucci pen, Ralph? A lot of people in the chat want to know. Is that you got your Gucci slides with that?
You know it's a WagerTalk Ralph Michaels the pen. Joe, I wanted to mention this. I meant to mention it earlier. I want to welcome back Tony Mejia, who's at Sports Memo now. He is actually the $2 tapper today with a 5% NBA play at Sports Memo. So we talked about WagerTalk being customer service. If you're a Tony Mejia fan, check it out at Sports Memo. $2 for a 5% NBA play for tonight.
Tony Mejia in the house, $2. All right, good stuff there, Ralph. Appreciate that. We appreciate you guys as well. Life in Vegas. Ryan, we appreciate you guys. Cheshire Cat in the house, causing all sorts of a kerfunkel in there. Good job by you, just stirring up the pot a little bit. Big Daddy, you guys rock. Catch you slipping. Tyler, we appreciate you all. And Money in the house again here today. I was wondering where you are. Money absolutely might be looking at the Heat again tomorrow. So come back and join us. We'll break those games down for you. Until then, cash those tickets tonight. Damn it. Come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll see you. Good luck.